Good morning, world. Well, we've got a little good news and a little bad news today. Depending on your perspective, it might all be good news, actually. But what we've got going, and by the way, I'm wearing my blue hat today, my Gators hat, which was provided by my oldest son, who is getting his master's degree online through, what is it, Florida or Florida Tech or Florida State, or I don't know. It's a Florida university, whoever the Gators are. So he sent me this blue hat some time ago, and so if you notice, I've been rotating my hats. Well, it's just another way that we keep things very entertaining here on the Blended Planet Animation Truman Show. We keep you on your toes because you never know what hat I'm going to wear. So, yesterday I had some really useful assistance conferring with Full Chain Animation about the editing here on the show, and we kind of agreed that while it's always a bummer to throw away basically a week's worth of work, the edit felt better when I chopped a bunch of stuff out and made it a little more compact and concise. Which meant we basically went here, we literally deleted a shot of Asher and a very long shot of Mel, and then replaced it with this, which was simply a recapitulation of this shot with a few extra keyframes and whatnot. Okay, and so then, by the way, I hear rumblings off in the background. That's Valerie. So if she gets up, I may very early go confer with her for a minute or two, and so I may take my break right at the beginning today. She's laughing at me for that. Well, I tell you, I gotta go. I have to disappear. Now, technically, I'm not even supposed to start for another minute. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to this screen and I'm going to loop what I pencil tested last night, because I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. I took Full Chain Animation's advice and I decided to break up we were toggling between close-ups, in this dialogue sequence. And he thought, maybe if you throw in like a wide shot to sort of break things up. And so I did. And I like it. I think it feels pretty good. I cut the pencil test into the show. It made Valerie smile, and she's pretty critical. So if it makes her smile, that's usually a good sign. So I'm going to go ahead and let this sequence loop. You can see I kind of have gone back to, even though it's like I'm doing a fair amount of full animation kind of stuff, I'm also kind of getting back to the 8 frames per second, some anime idioms and that sort of thing, and I like what I see. It feels good. This has actually got a slow push on it. What I really should do here is just play it over here, because I've actually got the push baked in. So therefore, what I'm going to do is hit the Q key to loop, and loop this sequence, which includes the pencil test, and essentially the entire sequence is done now. We just need ink and paint. So I'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll actually get started on our work. Which, by the way, if you're here, it looks like I have 0 concurrent viewers, so probably nobody is here. But if you are here and you care, another thing I may be doing is going through this list of deliverables. These are all the things I have to deliver for the feature film that I'm distributing. And I need to go through and provide a bunch of assets for distribution. So those of you who are interested in that sort of thing may, find that interesting. So sorry about that. I didn't switch screens, but this is the document. There's quite a list. There's quite a list of things to provide. So anyway, I will be back in just a couple minutes, and then we will actually get our work started. as stated. Good morning, Maria. As stated, we've got a bit of work to do. So come over here, hit the Q key, turn off the looping, stop that. I'm sure you guys all found that monumentally entertaining. And so jumping back here, as I say, there's basically two things to do today. One of them's kind of big. Well, I mean, this will take a while. I pencil tested this entire sequence. And it'll probably take a good couple hours at least, because we've got several shots baked into this, and there's going to be multiple backgrounds. Now that's going to be a reuse right there. So those two are pretty easy. Let's just analyze, shall we? Yeah. So those are backgrounds we already have. That's a shot we already have that we're just running in reverse, so that's done. This will need, well, actually this background would come from the archive. Yeah, so actually I don't even know if I have much background painting to do. So it's basically ink and paint. As you can see, as I say, I'm embracing, one of the things I'm trying to do in this beginning sequence is establish the sort of idioms of the show, right? As well as the main character, Melchizedek. And so, one of the things I wanted to do with this sequence, and by the way, that first shot right there, that wide shot, that was based on Full Chain Animation's suggestion yesterday, is, hey, why not break up this dialogue thing with a wide shot, just like a two-shot, just to kind of keep things moving. And as I said, when I played the entire sequence cut into the show for Valerie, who is my staunchest critic, she is uncompromising. If it's not working, she'll tell me. The thing made her smile. You know, she walked away and said, not bad. For when Valerie says not bad, that's like a normal person going, oh my god, I can't believe that's so cool. It's pretty much equivalence there. So this is to be inked and painted. And then what we got to do is we have to go here to this very lengthy list of deliverables. So this is for the feature film Clerical Errors, which you guys may have looked at or not. It was actually on my YouTube channel for a while, but I took it down because it's being distributed internationally, and you know, basically I'm wrapping my baby up in a box and turning my baby over to someone else who's then responsible for getting it out everywhere. So it'll be on, well, it'll be here on YouTube, but it'll be on the Encourage TV YouTube channel. Plus, you know, take your pick. It'll be on Amazon, Tubi, I'm sure Pluto TV. Just go down the list of all these platforms. It'll be there. So what do we have to do? Let's just take a peek, shall we? Number one here, high-resolution layered files for any existing key art, DVD wrap, disc label, movie, poster artwork, preferably in PSD or EPS format. Okay, so for an example of what I'm talking about, so again, this is for people that are serious about animation or storytelling, or in some cases, very few, but in some cases, feature film, where the whole idea is you're taking this thing you've created and you're getting it out to the world. Okay, so that assumes a couple things, like number one, that it's reasonably good to where a distributor would want to deal with your show. So that's a given. But given that, if we jump over here, what we will see is that in the Clerical Errors folder, we've got folders like, probably graphics would be a good one. So in the graphics, we will see, like poster. Let's go into poster. Okay, and these are the deliverables from a different distribution scenario that never actually happened. Okay, so we'll actually use the image browser, so I'll show you guys what the heck we're talking about dealing with here. So if we go to Clerical Errors, graphics, and for whatever reason this wants to take a second to wakey. Come on, you can do it. I'm sure you can. Okay, well, I'm gonna bypass that for the moment, and let's do preview mode here. So there you go. So this is a movie poster for clerical errors, and then there's, as you can see, several variations of it. Like this includes the feature film credit block, what they call a credit block. So, and then there's like a cleaner version that could be used somewhere where we acknowledge that no one would be able to read the credit block anyway, and so you create these variations. So most of the stuff I create this way is done in Inkscape, actually. So you can use Inkscape too, and for putting together really complex, and by the way, large. I mean, this is a really big graphic. I didn't do it at 300 DPI, so if you do the math, it's about a third, between a quarter and a third of actual 300 DPI resolution. But that's something we've talked about here before, is that what it turns out is if it looks good on a computer screen, in other words, remember, this is a movie poster. So you think of it this way. Let's zoom in big enough as if this were actually a poster on the wall. Okay, so that's about right. Let's see. The width of it would be probably about like that. Okay, so what you find is when you're looking at a movie poster, you're usually at least 6 feet away from it, right? When you walk into the theater, there's a bunch of posters on the wall, blah, blah, blah. So what you find is that if you make it look good on a computer screen, which is 72 dot per inch resolution, I can promise you, if you simply up-res it to 300 DPI for printing, it will look good when it's printed. Don't tell your distributors or your theater people, don't tell anyone you did that, because if they think they know anything about graphics, they're going to have a cow. They're going to have a total cow. They're going, oh my God, it's got to be 300 dpi, it's got to be full resolution. No. That just shows that they don't know anything about graphics. Because the reality is, and by the way, if you pay attention, if you go into a movie theater, actually, you look at these really big blow-ups that they stick on cardboard for like the Marvel, action movies and stuff. If you look real close at those, what would you call them? They're basically marketing or promotional assets, okay, that they use in theater. If you look real close at those, you'll be able to see actually the dot pattern of, to almost like make the graphic look like it was actually shot on film kind of thing. I mean, the reality is it's very, very crude. But it doesn't matter because you're always standing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 feet away from it, right? So anyway, I got to take this and basically see if I have a PSD version. In other words, do I have it in Photoshop format? If I probably don't. And if I don't, then I need to jump through some hoops to take all of these individual assets. And this, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't know why my graphics browser is being stupid. But if we go in there, what we'll find is that poster consists of probably 25 layers. I mean, it's a big, complex file. And so what I have to do is go, well, okay, how do we convert that into Photoshop format? There's a zillion ways we could do it. One way would be to just cut and paste each of the layers from Inkscape into Krita and then save it as a PSD. And then just to be safe, if it was me, I would then open it in Photoshop 5, which is like 20 years old, but it's the only version of Photoshop I have, and it's really, really stable, and it's not tied to the cloud or anything. It's very lean and mean, and it works. It was really the quintessential version of Photoshop way back in the day before they started moving to the, what was it, the CS series. Okay, so yeah, ancient history. But anyway, so there's a bunch of other things we have to do, like provide closed captioning, which fortunately I already spent the $100 with because the movie was on Amazon for a bit. So I actually spent the $100 and had a pro outfit create the closed caption, because every time I did it, no matter what I did, something about the file was non-compliant, and that's a very well-known, real common problem. And usually you're just better off to let the pros generate the closed captions for you. So fortunately that's done. And that may be helpful. It probably will be helpful for creating the dialogue document. That's going to be the one that probably takes all the time, because what I have to do is take every line of dialogue in the movie and create this spreadsheet that tells you where the time code is for each of those lines of dialogue. Why? Well, because what if they sell the movie in Croatia and the movie winds up getting dubbed? You know, they might subtitle it, but they also might translate it and dub other voices on top of it, like those cheeseball Godzilla movies. Same idea. And and that's why you notice that's when I've talked here about lip sync. I don't spend a lot of time on the lip sync here dealing with phonemes, because as likely as not it's going to be wound up translated into a different language anyway, and none of the mouth shapes would actually make any sense. So you got to have a methodology that bypasses that problem, right? And the way you do that is you just go and it actually works. So there you go. Those are the things I have to do today. And since we have one concurrent viewer, that means basically nobody cares about generating deliverables for a feature film. And that's okay. That's okay. If it's not interesting, go somewhere else. Go somewhere that's interesting. I could get snarky and say, go somewhere where there's somebody on YouTube that's creating stuff that's really entertaining, but isn't actually media that's being distributed in the real world. You know, I could be that guy. But no, I'm going to adhere to a higher standard today and not be Mr. Snarky. Step one is, I think what I'm going to do is actually create a vector level. Why? Because if I'm going to stick with what Full Change suggested, and I think I'd like to try it, the very first sequence here is going to be in silhouette. And if it's going to be in silhouette, we might as well just create closed shapes. So we really have two ways to do that. We can either do it here, or we can do it in Krita. If we do it here, we need to do it with a vector level. So that means we draw the shapes as best we can, like so. I don't have to draw the whole thing right now if I don't want to. I can go like this. In fact, it actually makes a lot of sense to... that was probably a mistake, because by doing the head separately, I'd be able to animate it, but that's okay. We're making this up as we go along. The other thing that definitely probably should be done separately is his hand, because I don't know. This whole region gets animated, so I'm kind of stealing this hand expression from Frank Frazetta, if the truth be known. It's very much the type of thing you'd see in a Frank Frazetta painting. So, again, I'm sure most of the people out there will find this terribly dull. But it's what you gotta do if you're gonna, you know, do what you do here in the world of animation. And I'm not going to be too picky about that. What do you even call that thing that a stool sits on? The up and down part. My goodness. Actually, let's use the geometry tool. Let's not use multi-arc. Let's use rectangle. It doesn't get much simpler than this, does it? Oh, it's not filled. Seriously, dudes? Okay. Problem solved. So yeah, we want autofill. And that way we can go like this. And so basically that's done. Should I do Mel separately? Probably. Look at that. That looks great. And now we can actually see what the final shot's going to look like. This is too easy. Unfortunately, that requires our image browser, which still is acting like hopelessly stupid. I really see no option other than to kill it. I'm actually going to use my task manager and kill the stinker. Ridiculous. I'm going to end the task and rerun it and hope that. Now, probably what was going on. So Maria says, do you find that drawing vector isn't as nice for fine small curves? Well, it's not, only because you're right, and the reason for that is because the the let me go back here and hit the basic problem is this, and this is what you want to play around with, Maria. The basic problem is accuracy and smooth. These two kind of work against each other. So maximally accurate means it's going to follow your lines as closely as possible, let's say, and that means that the vectors you create are going to have a lot of little nodes in them because it's trying to really accurately reproduce what you did. So less accuracy means you could see it smoothing. It's still pretty close. Let's turn the accuracy way up and then make a really squiggly line. And you see it's pretty close. Okay. Now you can take, but it's not really 100% accurate is the problem. Okay, you can see no matter what I do, it's not bad there. Probably the only reason it is bad-ish is because of the lines, the actual thickness of the lines. So if let's keep this as simple as possible. Let's say 1 pixel. Okay, if you go 1 pixel on your line width, so that looks pretty good drawing it. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's pretty accurate. So if you really want accuracy, you've got to factor the thickness of the lines themselves out of it, because those lines have a thickness and it creates a rounding effect where maybe you didn't want one. Now the other thing you do is you turn up smoothing, and then this is going to go hog wild, and as you can see it's lagging behind because it's a real-time smoothing that's going on. Not a huge fan, but you know, to be fair, that's pretty accurate. Now if you actually turn the smoothing maximally up but the accuracy maximally down, you know, you saw some smoothing through here. So the long story short is, it's not bad. None of it's really bad. But it is not as precise, certainly, as a as what you're going to get with a, you know, smart raster level. It's just not. But basically, the rule is play with it. You know, fiddle around with it and see what works for the thing that you're working on at the moment, you know. Okay, so here, as we can see, and this is kind of interesting because, oops, didn't mean to do that. I needed to be there. I'm just filling in that little spot right there. Okay, so there's more than one approach we could take to this. If we look at the pencil test, you can see this kind of moves as a unit, with the caveat that the mouth, the lip sync is sort of baked into the whole thing. So if I really wanted to leverage my efforts, I would probably draw this without his mouth in there at all. I would just literally leave the mouth out. But because of the way I did this with autofilled shapes, I'd pretty much have to erase the whole thing and start over if I was going to try to be Mr. Smart about it, right? At the end of the day, none of this is really going to take that long anyway, so it's just not that big of a deal. What I would say is that for this drawing, let's just put his shoulder in there so that we have a drawing. Okay, what does make sense is to hit the S key, grab this object here, Control C, and then Control V, paste it in here so that we can just go like that and at least begin to get the animation happening. And so, again, while we're here, we might as well just do that with this entire bit. And then if we have to deform it a little bit, which I think we will, like right here, do I really want his shoulders to start to expand out toward, you know, back? Not really. So what I'm going to do to solve that is, there's more than one way. You could use the magnet tool. So if I take the magnet tool, but make it big, then basically you can sculpt, which is, you know, it's basically what the Blender grease pencil people get all excited about, and it is very cool, you know. All right, so let's actually take this S key, grab this, Control C, next frame. I think I do need to hit the B key so that there's actually a frame there. S key, Control V, and now let's just do it again. We'll get this whipped into shape. Whoops. And as you can see, you can just deform the whole thing as well. So there's more than one way to skin that cat. Looks like we're okay here. This might be a good candidate for the magnet tool, actually, because really what should be happening here is something like this. So again, I don't use the magnet tool a lot, but you know, when it's useful, it's useful. So, see, there you go. No big deal. And if you make it smaller, what it does is it actually creates nodes. So if I hit the C key, you see how many nodes we have here, just as an example. If we go back to the magnet tool and make a little divot here, you'll see that it's going to create new nodes as it needs to in order to give you the result you were trying to achieve. So it's really pretty good. I can't really spit on the old magnet tool too much, I have to say. When it works, it works. But you have to kind of play with it, feel it. Okay. I don't like how it doesn't take to things like hair outlines. Oh, hair outlines. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that. That is really the quintessential problem case, actually. It really is. Okay, what do I mean by that? In other words, where vectors, especially if they have any smoothing involved, where they tend to fall apart is this shape right here. That's where they tend to fall apart. As you can see, though, it's actually doing a pretty good job. But right down there at the point, you can see a bit of rounding. Now, if we actually reduce this to 00, now it's pretty darn accurate. It's not perfect, but and this is the type of thing I've played around with a bit in Blender, because if let's erase that. So in other words, you could really have a lot of fun doing something like this. Create a vector shape, and then turn its opacity way down, okay? And then start going like this. Like, let's just say I'm trying to really see this in my head, this outline, okay? All right, and I'm going to create maybe Ming the Merciless. Okay, so you create this shape that's got this opacity, or this transparency, I guess I should say, baked into it. And now, because it's got that transparency, you start building out like this. Okay, again, Ming the Merciless, right? You just start building it out. And as you go, you just keep adding layers, in this case, sort of the shadow under his eye kind of thing. Da, 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 da. Now what I would say is, in this case, now you can scale the whole thing by just turning the opacity down. So it goes, so now it's even lighter, so now you've got even more latitude to like build this up, right? But you can see the smoothing going on. Like right there, a little shape like that is where it really breaks. It breaks badly. So I would say doing this is even worse than doing this. This is actually working okay, and I think it's because this angle is so sharp that it pretty much can't get it wrong. A little curve like that, it's basically worthless at that point. That's where your vectors really fall apart. It's possible, though, think about this. What it's probably doing is it's mapping the nodes of the vector to over time. It's probably got a sample rate baked into it, if you will. Okay? How do we use that to our advantage? Well, if you have to do a shape like that you don't want to be distorted, do it slowly. Let's see if it works. So as I say, if I go like that, that's okay. And that rounded a lot. So now if I do the same thing, but I do it slowly, nope. Okay, I was wrong. I think what I just said would hold true with the Blender Grease Pencil. With the vectors in Opentoonz, not so much. So basically, it's deciding where the nodes are, not based on how fast you move, but rather, I think when you've moved far enough for it to trigger adding another node. That's basically what just happened. That would explain it anyway, I think. Not optimal. Not optimal. Okay, so now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually redo this. So we just sort of have a clean version of it. and that was wrong. I meant to use the other color. So I can solve that by doing a fill operation in freehand mode with this color. I believe this should work, and it just changes color. Okay, so now I believe I have failed. I'm going to erase that. I don't like it. I blew that. I was better off to just use this, so that's what I'm going to do. Just got to do with what feels right. I said do with, I meant go with. You got to go with what feels right. I mean, part of the whole idea here is to make it one fluid, seamless looking thing. So all I'm really trying to do right here is just get this inside of the pencil lines, and then I'll add more vectors to get the outline correct. So the reason I'm doing it this way, this is like totally stupid, right? The reason I'm doing it this way is because well, what I could do is I could take the C key. Okay, I could do it that way. And then grab these nodes and delete them. Okay. But what you can't do is use the eraser, because if you use the eraser, the fill will get broken, and then you'll have to reclose it and refill it. So that's where the C key is kind of useful. For a lot of people, the best way to use vectors is to think like a modeler, which is draw a really simple shape and then use the C key to edit the Bezier curves, and now you're in total control of it. And that works quite well. All right, let's do a duplicate. S key. Now you could use the C key as well. You could use the C key, grab all the nodes, and I believe, actually no, yep, you can. You can actually move the whole thing. There's no way really to rotate them though, so hence we shall use the S key, the selection tool. I wonder if you hit control here. Yep, that works too. So that's something good to know with vectors. You can actually grab the control button or control key and make these little, you can fine tune the cage. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to make another duplicate, and we'll just get this done, because this is where most of the work is in this whole shot, is actually in the animation of this hand. Okay, yeah, and so what happens here, why have we got do? This is wrong. This is totally wrong. I must have been yakking. Let me move this out of the way and see what we got here. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so now 6 and 7 just repeat over and over. Control C, V, until we get here to 8, which still has the hand in it. And then from there, it's just lip sync. Okay, so hope that makes sense. My internet cut out. I wanted to say that was really helpful. Oh, that stinks. Your internet cut out. Well, I don't know how I managed that right there. There's something a little strange going on, because I thought I had that lined up. Yet I clearly did not. Okay. So now, what are we going to do with his body? Well, turns out, look, we're lucky. We can go Control V. Hello. I think we can go Control V. Maybe we can't. So I'm going to grab this and the hat, Control C, and I'm just going to do as much as I can here with cutting and pasting, because it would be silly not to. Here again, I'm going to hit the Control key and just stretch that a little bit. Look at that. That's pretty slick. But then you can see this is actually not accurate. Now I could make my life a little bit easier by doing this. Now I can see what I'm doing. Yeah. That would be good. It would be good to see what you're doing. And looks like this is lined up. But this isn't so much, so I'm actually going to hit the Control key and just stretch that over a little bit like that. Okay. So then we'll patch this little bugger here up. Okay, cool. So yeah, as long as we can get Asher's animation, which again is by far the most complex part of this entire scene, or sequence, I guess is the appropriate term. The thing we want to look at here is when he starts chomping his jaws. Okay, so right there is what I'm talking about. There he closes his mouth, and from then on it's lip sync time like crazy. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to paste this in, and then we're going to be alternating between two items that we're cutting and pasting. I hope this makes sense. So I'm hitting the S key, Control V. We'll get this lined up like that. Actually, there's I want to check one thing. That looks pretty good, but did he actually move? Yes, he did move here. So here and here are almost the same, but not quite, and the difference is going to be his mouth. So I'm going to go Control C, Control V, but then this one, we need to hit the C key and just do a little editing here. So first thing I'm going to do is make my life easier by deleting unnecessary nodes. And again, this is something that's going to take like a minute to do, but once it's done, it's going to basically make the rest of the sequence pretty simple. So I'm going to grab this little cluster of nodes right here, and I didn't successfully grab them. So I'm going to click and pull and close that. Not completely closed, obviously. But now what that did for me is this gave me this. And now what we can do is take this and this. Sorry, should hit the S key so I can sort of grab the whole object. Control C. And now what we're going to do is go here, paste, paste. Okay, actually that's all I needed. I forgot those already repeated. So this guy, Control C, Control V, V, and then here, yep, we've got the same situation. So now question I have, can I hit Control V and actually have it, I better save my work. This would be a good time to save my work. So what I'm going to do is I've got a cell that hasn't been created yet. Can you create one by just hitting Control V and pasting a vector into a cell? I have literally no idea. 2 erectors, is this even live? Yeah, this is live. Dude, are you there? What are you talking about? Okay, so 2 erectors is one of these guys that is okay, I see. Yeah. No, I'm just doing the work, dude. So, yeah, don't panic. Don't panic. I acknowledge you. You're there. We're all good. We're live, dude. Man, no need for panic. Okay, so the question is, I saved my work, but the question is, can you take a vector shape and go to an empty cell and hit Control V and actually have it create the cell dynamically? Yes. Okay, very good. So now what we can do is do it again. Control V. Here, yep, Control V. And then that stays to here. And I have no idea. Oh, that cuts to a different shot. So that means we can take this, Control C, Control V. And by the way, I'm kind of glad that it looks like it doesn't, it is ripple editing it, but at least it doesn't fill in a bunch of shapes where you didn't want one. So that's kind of useful. So I'm going to go grab this, Control C, almost done. Almost done with the grunt work. Okay, so let's pull back. And since 2 erectors here, somewhat snarkily noting that there's only one. Oh, yeah, you're right, dude. You're going, okay, there's only one person watching this. You know what? That's because most people don't care about watching some joker like me do the hard work of actually creating a cartoon. Okay. this is not glamorous, right? This is kind of difficult, and sometimes it's pretty tedious. And if people just really want to see the fun, easy stuff, sometimes I do that too. But basically, yeah, there's not a big audience out there for an animation Truman show. And frankly, I don't blame them. Now, the truth is, the reason I started doing this more than a couple years ago is because this is what I wanted to see. I really did, here on YouTube, and it just didn't exist. I thought it'd be really cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, let's grab this. I'm going to grab all these shapes right here. I guess I have to actually lasso around them. So let's grab these shapes, Control C. Again, this is really by far the most brutal part of this entire sequence, is just getting Asher animated. So fortunately, whoops, Control Z, Z. So once this part's done, it's pretty much back to conventional ink and paint, really. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Oh my goodness. Dave, could you be any more of a goof? That's the question. And the answer is, not really. I'm a goof. I admit it. I admit it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is hit the B key. Why don't you use... Okay, 2 O-rectors. I'm going to answer KKK. How politically incorrect can you be, man? KKK? What is that? What does that even mean? I see. He's saying, okay. Continue. Oh, I have your permission, do I? Okay, before I answer your question about Moho or Adobe Animate, which I will, okay, I will answer your question. But before I answer your question, you got to answer my question. How old are you? Hey, Chris K. 2 O-rectors, I want to know how old you are. I got a couple questions for you before I start answering your questions. I'll tell you why. I have a lot of respect for you, and if you're kind of a young person, I want to help you if I can. Okay. So you're 17. Okay, exactly what I thought. Okay, I figured you were somewhere between 15 and 20. Okay, great. Okay, so now my question for you is, before I answer, why are you asking me that? Why do you want to know? And really think about your answer. What's the real, truthful answer? Get right to the heart of it in your own soul. Ask yourself, why am I asking this guy why he's not using Adobe Animate or Moho? Go ahead. Tell me your best, most honest answer of why you would ever ask me that question. What is it you're really trying to get at here? Think about the emotions you feel. I know that sounds pretty cheeseball, but I'm serious. Why do you want to know why I'm not using this other software instead of the software I am using? Tell me that. Not trying to pick on you here, but this is really an important question. If you want to learn, if you want help today from me, I will give it to you. Okay? Because I've written and directed feature films that have been distributed all over the world, and you haven't. So there's things about this media space that I understand that you don't. I will guarantee you. And I'm happy to help you, but you got to work here. So you love to animate and you want to start somewhere, right? Okay. All right. Now, let me ask you this. Are you a creator or are you a worker bee? Okay, so what I mean by that is, what's your goal? Okay, if you could project out, let's really, really think 5 years into the future. Are you the guy who wants to be part of the next Pixar movie? Are you a guy who is an animation purist who just adores the classic 2D animation stuff? You know, the Warner Brothers cartoons or the Disney stuff? What is it you love? Well, animation is a passion. That's not really a good enough answer for me because, and I'll tell you why. I can't answer your question. I could steer you in the right direction if I understand where you're trying to go from here. So let's say, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? If you're 17 years old, you should be thinking about this. Okay? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know what the path is, because whatever you think it'll be, it's not going to be that. It's going to be different than what you think. But you need to be thinking like, what are you trying to do? And if you say it's okay, bro, what you're really saying is that you're not prepared to answer that question. Which to me is a bit silly. If I'm 17 years old, by gum, I'm thinking about where I want to be in 5 years. And if I'm not thinking that thought, I'm not really very smart. You know programming. Okay, that's fine. So do I. I've programmed in at least 8 different languages. Okay. I know pretty much everything there is to know about C, C++, and JavaScript for sure, plus there's a bunch of other ones. So yeah, I know programming too, but why are you telling me that? So I'm really seriously, I'm like your counselor at school right here, right? Or I'm like a parent that you actually trust. Okay, I'm the guy who's here to help steer you in the right direction. You're 17 years old. You got a lot of cool things that are going to be happening in your life. I know Python, CPP. Okay, so is that what you want to do? You want to program, but yet you're into animation. So does that steer you in the game direction? This is helpful. You're actually helping me narrow it down to where I can actually answer your question for you. So is that what you're actually passionate about? Is animation in the context of a programmatic application? Yes. Okay. Well, then in the game space, there's basically 2 directions you can go, obviously, and one is okay. So you're a little more like me in that you're both technical and artistic, and frankly, 2 rectors. That's really unusual. That's a very cool thing. Okay. So over the next few years, you know, whether you do the college thing or not, the good news is that there's a lot you could learn to prepare yourself for that type of a career or an adventure, which you can do while you're still in high school. I mean, because in the real world, all people care about is if you're good. You know, they don't care about degrees and stuff like that. You know, there's the Googles out there who, of course, use degrees as a bit of a filter for whether you even get the job interview. But so anyway, getting back to answering your question, this would be my advice for you. If you're wanting to deal with the game zone, it would seem to me that the likelihood is high that you will not be doing what I'm doing. Okay, I'm a one-man studio. You're probably not going to do that. It's possible, because you could do what I do in the sense that you combine programming and your artistry, and you could actually create a cool game that is really successful, just like all by yourself. It's possible. You could do it. I say that emphatically. Kid, you could do it. If you really set your sights on that and begin to work on it, you could do it. So the question I'm asking myself right now is whether it's important for you to be prepared to work in a team environment. Okay? In other words, you've got a job with a company that's really cool that's creating games. If that's where you're headed, then you've got a great question, in that it probably would be good to learn an application like Adobe Animate, because there's just way more there's going to be way more professional environments where they're using a tool like that. On the other hand, if you want to have the greatest number of possibilities open to you that also includes your application of Python. Okay, now think about this. You're saying I want to draw, illustrate, animate, and I'm a Python guy. You want to learn Blender, dude. You absolutely, there's not even a question. Screw Adobe Animate for the moment. This is the program you need to learn. Learn Blender. Now this is Blender 2.81, but I mean, Blender has Python everywhere. Everything, including the entire user interface, is actually driven by Python. And, you know, and for this show, well, actually, this is not the show I'm working on right now, but this is a show I was working on before I started working on the one I'm working on now. But a lot of this was all done with the Blender grease pencil. You know, a lot of it was done right here in Blender. Some of it was done with Krita. Some of it was done with Tahoma. Yeah, I mean, I'd be saying, dude, you're 17 years old. Learn everything you can learn about Blender. Forget everything else. Blender, Blender, Blender. Now, the only caveat to that would be you do need to have some tool in your toolbox that's a little more mature painting program than Blender. So there's your Photoshop, there's your Clip Studio, Clip Studio Paint. Krita is what I use, which is of course a free and open source type of program. But yeah, dude, you got it going on. I mean, definitely. Blender plus a little bit better paint program. You can do most of the painting in Blender if you're determined to suffer through and sort of figure out a way to do it. You can do it. But you'll probably want a good paint program in your kit. But if you're a Python guy, everything in Blender is Python. You could probably write a Python plugin that makes life easier for other Blender animators that would be, you could make a little money that way if you're good with Python. So yeah, I mean, you've already got Photoshop and Illustrator. Then okay, so your question is, why am I not using those? And the reason is because basically I don't have to. There's nothing about my workflow that demands that I use Photoshop. Now it's interesting that actually came up today, because if we jump over here to this other screen, I'm going to be working today on. Well, I guess I should go back here. I'm going to be working today on generating the assets for my film distributor, and they need a bunch of stuff. Right at the top of the list is the movie poster, and they need it in Photoshop format, and I actually created it in Inkscape as an SVG file, so I'm going to have to convert it to Photoshop, which I've got an ancient version of Photoshop that I use when I happen to need to pull it out. So yeah, cool, man. I'm here to help you, bro. I'm here to help you if I can. Because I care. I care about everybody out there who's trying to get somewhere in their life and create their sort of artistic dream, whatever that might be. It's a little different for everybody, but it's all good. So yeah, okay, cool. I hope that is an encouragement to you. You have a great advantage. My youngest son is 19, and when he was debating the question of college, it was really, he's pretty entrepreneurial, and he really just, when we looked at the cost versus the benefit of the college route, it really didn't make much sense for him. And, here a couple years later, since he had to start thinking about this, I think that we were right in our assessment, that it really didn't matter. And now what he's done is I basically forced him to learn the web platform, so basically HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And now he's acquiring clients, doing website development, and dovetailing also into digital signage. In other words, creating like these sort of animated slideshows that show on a screen. So you go into your doctor's office, let's say, the doctor's got a screen up on the wall, right? And what plays on the screen is like okay. No. If you're not familiar with Blender, holy cow, yeah, you really ought to learn Blender. Because there's a lot of things about the game development pipeline that are greatly helped by Blender. And plus, Blender's been, I've been using Blender for 20 years, so I'm an old timer with Blender. I was the first guy on the planet Earth to create a Blender training video, believe it or not, back in year 2000. Okay, so this needs to be kind of like that. I got to get this blocked in. I probably should turn on the onion skins for this one. Yeah, so we can kind of map that. Okay, so your point about advanced tools is that basically there's nothing you're going to do in Adobe Animate that I can't do with Opentoonz, Blender, and Krita, the three together, which they work together reasonably seamlessly. There's nothing you're going to do that I'm not going to be able to do with those tools. So, now I have a certain affinity for Photoshop, And I'll tell you why. You're not going to believe this. You probably literally may not believe this. But the guy that shepherded Photoshop into the juggernaut program that it is today, okay, not the guy who originally created it. That was Thomas Knoll, the brother of John Knoll, who's kind of famous for the work he's done with George Lucas. At Industrial Light and Magic. But John Knoll was involved with Photoshop. But what took Photoshop to the next level was a guy named Mark Hamburg. Mark Hamburg's the guy that actually shepherded Photoshop into the juggernaut that it is. Well, Mark Hamburg was the valedictorian of my high school graduation class. And oh my God, I used to be really, really hard on Mark. I treated him like crap when we were in high school. He hated me and I hated him. But boy, did he did great. He's my Facebook friend now. He's a good guy. Really accomplished guy. He's done some amazing work in the programming world. No, unfortunately it's not. It's not. University is not free in our country. What country are you in, Tuo? I use Moho. Just to be clear, I mean I've looked at the recent versions of Moho, and I actually have Anime Studio Pro. I think it's version 7. And when I started doing animation just 3 years ago, well, I was maybe closer to 4 years ago. So I had been involved with like 3D CGI type stuff going back 20 years, but I really only embraced 2D animation a few years ago. It's basically something I always loved to do that I sort of put off for 30 years, Okay, here what we need to do is grab as much of this as we can. Ah, shoot, I've got to lasso it. Control C, and why did it offset it? You weren't supposed to do that, you silly goose. Or as Snoopy would say, curse you, Red Baron. All right, S key V. It keeps offsetting it. Okay. Well, that's okay. We've got the onion skins in there, so if I don't grab this wrong, I should be able to get that lined up. There we go. Whew, dodged a bullet there, didn't we? Okay. I think we've got Asher done. Okay, we've got some chatter there in his back. You see that? Ick, 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 ick. But we can fix that. We can cheat. I'll cheat here. So you said you worked with some big animation companies. Are you? Well, I haven't worked with. No. Well, what I've done is. Gosh, do we go down this road? What I've done is I've written and directed feature films. Okay. Basically family-friendly feature films. Okay, so I got to do one thing here before I keep yakking right here. So we got that toggle correct. What I want to do is take this. I'm going to delete that. That's okay. So I need to take this shape right here. So this is where sort of the object-based approach as opposed to sort of the drawing-based approach kind of gets to be a bit of a pain in the butt, but it is what it is. So I'm not having as much fun right now because I'm not drawing, but that's okay. We need to get this. We can't have this chatter on his back, right? Now, technically you could, but I don't want it. So what I'm going to do is take this shape here. Okay, I see what I did. So I'm going to take that out. And probably there, we could make a copy of this. I think we'd be okay. So there's only going to be that one chatter moment. So I think we're okay now. Yeah, that's good. So now we just have to... Now we still have that chatter from 1 to 2, and it's because of the stuff up top. Again, like I said, this is where I really cease to have as much fun. So why is this different? Oh, it's 7. So once we go to 2, right there's the problem. Okay, got it. what I don't understand is this is drawing 1. How can we go from drawing 1? What does FM mean? Did it create a new level? In essence, it created a new level. So this 1 is not the same as the other 1. That's a little weird. We need to take this, Control C, and paste it here. Jeez, that was a little weird. Okay, now I don't like that change either. So the change from 7 to 1, we can probably fix it by hitting Control and just dragging this in a little bit. Probably. It's still going to have a bit of a chatter. Yeah. So now we'll take 2, delete. Yeah, this is tedium here. This is tedium, but sometimes you got to do it. Okay. So what films can? Yeah. If you go to the YouTube channel, my film distributor is Encourage TV. Okay, so this is basically these guys, they tend to publish sort of like Christian themed type things. So if you go to the Encourage TV YouTube channel and we search their channel for the word healed, you're going to get these 2 movies, Healed by Grace 2012 and then Healed by Grace 2 2018. So those are 2 films that I wrote and directed out of 8, and they're actually tooling up right now to distribute another film that I did in between these 2. So if you're not into the Christian movie thing, which believe me, there's a lot of really cheesy content on this channel, you might find it a little bit annoying, but I'm happy to say that for the most part, my films aren't exactly heavy-handed in that regard too much. Little bit. So, yeah, some people do, some people don't. It just depends. All right, so now what I got to do is, I only say that because I find it irritating too. Actually, I feel like my feelings about those sorts of topics are different than they used to be, and so philosophically, I'm a little different guy than I was when I created those movies. Okay, probably our best bet here. Let's just try it this way. Let's grab this with the C key, and let's just grab these nodes and just drag them down. Just go like that. Boop. We just covered up the hole. Look at that. Cool beans. I think we're good on this opening. This opening salvo. Okay, except there's one little... again, this is where I really would be happier drawing right now than dealing with selections. Okay, 8, 7. This is fine. But then 1 needs to really be a copy of 8 insofar as the hand goes. So what I'm going to do... I don't know if this is like totally clear for you guys, and it might be a little maddening to watch. But what I have to do here is grab this... Okay, now I need to delete these guys. And then hit the S key and paste this in. That should have done the trick. And now we've got the chatter from 1 to 2. Oh my god. So same thing again. Tedium, tedium, tedium. Well, there's no such thing as animation software that doesn't lock you into a certain amount of tedium, that's for sure. So, we try not to complain too much. Usually I'm doing a lot more drawing than I'm doing right now today. But I think I got it. So hit the K key, rewind. There we go. Okay, so we got the opening sequence with Asher done. Where do I live? Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana. You would go and watch it? Yeah, you can watch it on the Encourage TV YouTube channel. I mean, those films are everywhere. They're on Tubi, you know. I like Tubi, so that's the one I'm aware of. But I mean, you can see them on Amazon and everywhere else too, pretty much. So, okay. I think I'm gonna smack the background in there. Just let's jump over here. So. Yeah, Anime Studio. I really like Anime Studio, and I like Moho. I like the you know, when you talk about advanced tools, You would be wrong if you said that Anime Studio is more advanced than Opentoonz. That would not be accurate. I would say it's for setting up rigs. If you want to create assets for a show, oh boy, look what's on the screen. This is my Frank Frazetta knockoff that I did as a watercolor. That was kind of fun. Anyway, if you're going to set up a rig where you're basically hoping to create a cartoon or something where the characters are in a 3/4 view and they're driven by bones and relationships between those bones, drivers, things like that, then Moho is a great tool. But be aware, there's nothing you can do in Moho. Hey, Amar. There's nothing you can do in Moho at all that you can't do just as well, if not much better, and more powerfully in Blender. I mean, when it comes to rigging, and Amar, who just showed up, will back me up on this, is that Blender is the creme de la creme when it comes to any kind of rigging, because obviously it's set up to do, there's nothing they're doing at Pixar that you couldn't do with Blender as far as your tools go. Not at all. And that's been true for 10 years. There's nothing really new about that. But anyway, back over here, what I was going to do is I was going to go to the anime Salt and Light scenes, and then I was looking for my background image, and actually that one's not going to work, so I have to go to my extras folder where the background paintings are, and I need to scroll through and find red. Oh, there it is. Okay, and basically for this shot I probably want one of these. That one would not be too bad. That would not be too bad, although I don't think the resolution's high enough. Moho's the best for rigging, and I agree. You have to work out the workflow, but Blender's well, what you have with Moho is basically you've got a trade-off between simplicity and clarity. In other words, it's really easy to wrap your head around how to set up a rig and, for example, draw a lasso around the control points and map them to a bone and things like that is really easy in Anime Studio Pro, or what they're calling Moho now. Blender, it's a little trickier. You're trading off a little bit more, as always happens. You're always trading off a little bit of complexity and housekeeping in exchange for power. You've got more capability in terms of, so in other words, if I've got a bone that's moving a bunch of points, well, do I want to move those points in such a way that I have a real lot of control over the points that are up here versus the points that are down here? And I want the points down here to only move a little bit, but I want the points up here to move a lot. And then the software is doing a really good job of calculating that for me and actually dialing in that gradient of control, things like that. That's where Blender is, off the chart good. Now, the latest version of Moho may be 2. I doubt it, but it might be. So anyway, what we have here going on is we really want this level of resolution. So I'm going to smack this in. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use this one. And then it's probably not going to work because... Oh, so Amar says if I was going to pick a tool for production, it needs to be more flexible, than I would choose Blender because but there's more of a learning curve. Absolutely. That's right. Absolutely. I mean, that's what everyone says constantly about Blender. Oh, there's so much to learn. To which, of course, I say, yeah, of course. Now, in the case of 2.0, he's already learned Photoshop and Illustrator, so obviously he has no great aversion to like having to learn a software, right? So that's good. That he's getting started in the right direction here for sure. Okay. In this case, okay, like I said, this is probably not going to work, but I'm going to try anyway because it's just going to save me some painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, you're probably going to, let me crop it to the camera also. Okay, so actually, this would probably work. That would actually probably work. And you know what? I'm trying to rotate this to straighten it out, but actually I need to hit the... This doesn't come up very often. I'm going to actually use the shear tool to actually fix that little bit of... fix that little bit of slant we have. It's definitely a tricky tool to use. But at least it lets you do it. And then what we'll do is, in this case, we'll put a, we've had pretty strong focal blur on all the other shots because they've been tight close-ups. For this one, we'll do a blur, but we're not going to do a 45 pixel blur, right? We're going to do a probably about a 10 or something. So you can't see this, but on the other screen, I'm just putting 10 in as the blur parameter. And okay, not bad actually. Let's hit Control-Shift-R and just cut it into the show and kind of see how things are feeling. So let's just go over here, and this is basically what's going to happen. We've got these close-ups, and then again, full chain animation. We were talking yesterday, and he suggested, hey, maybe throw in a two-shot to kind of break things up. So basically that worked. We're going to be doing the ink and paint here on Mel. We got that little anime idiom. Little shrug of the shoulders, and then he says, "All right, Melchizedek, it's time you learn the truth." And then we cut to the backstory that basically gives the whole. This is now Asher telling the backstory of the entire series. What's going on here? So. And that should be a lot of fun, because now we can interject some reactions from Melchizedek and things like that. Once I finish my animation project, then I'll call myself an animator. Dude, actually, the more complex the software is, the more feedback you can get back from it. Yep, that's very true. I apologize, I didn't switch screens here. So what we were looking at is just this transition here. We've got Asher doing his thing, Mel's reaction, and then now we're in the shot we're working on right now. And as I say, we're just putting in a... And by the way, that silhouette is not going to be black. That's a little obnoxious. So let's go here, and let's just find a shade that makes it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and find that middle ground, and then just for fun, I have no idea if this will work, but I'm going to basically go to the complement and see if it feels better if I actually punch up the contrast by using the complement. I think that kind of works. You could say a little bit of a push back towards the red makes it sit in the mix a little better. So okay, so for this entire sequence, Mel never really moves. So yeah, what I'm doing here, 2.0 Rectors, is I decided a couple of years ago to quit making live action movies, and I just felt like I wanted to do animation. I had put it off, as I said, for 30 years. And it's like, okay, let's do that. And I was working on that anime thing that I had here up on the screen for a couple of minutes. I was working on that for quite a few months. And then happened to get into a conversation with my film distributor where this show, which was originally written at this point it was written, the original episode concept was like 7 years ago or something. It might have been even longer. And it was like, basically, because some things had changed in the marketplace and they were sort of finding their way with getting movies into these streaming platforms. Basically, they were starting to get in cash flow happening again, is really what was going on. Oh, I got somebody at the door. Hang on a second, folks. Oh dear, motorcycle problems. So what's the fix?
Replacing the entire box. It's like $20.
$20. You can live with $20. Business is good. You can afford $20, buddy. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to spontaneously just create another vector level. I don't usually use vectors like for anything except shadows, but today it's kind of appropriate to what we're doing because it's all silhouette. So I don't remember what I was even talking about before there was a knock at the door, but I'm sure it was really important. And that's annoying. I just drew okay. I created a smart raster level instead of a vector level. So, okay. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'll hit the fill tool and just fill it. We'll just do it that way. It really doesn't matter. This is one drawing that basically Mel is going to be on the screen frozen for this first sequence anyway. So what does it matter? We can do it any way we want to. So what I'm going to do is I just want to get him kind of off the screen here. It's just a cheese ball. Silhouette. N key. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is hit the V key and just flesh this out a little bit because he's a little too skinny. So I'm going to... So yeah, I was talking about the pathway. So what happened was the film distributor, we just started talking about this show concept that I'd written several years earlier, and it was just like, yeah, you know, this might be a good time to finally do something with that. Because I had pitched him on it several years earlier, and it was like the marketplace was just Deadsville. Because DVDs were dying, and, you know, the streaming platforms hadn't really quite happened yet, you know? So it was this sort of dead zone of about 2 to 5 years, really. It was definitely a dead zone there for a while. I'm not loving what I did here with poor Melchizedek's belly. There we go. That's probably okay. Just like with filmmaking, I've been an aspiring filmmaker for too long, but haven't created any films. Dave has, but I still dream about doing that. Hey, Ed. Glad to see you. And by the way, 2O Rectors, if you want to know a guy who's also doing really good animation work with actually with free, you know, and open source tools, look at that guy that just showed up, Ed Tadeo. He does awesome work with Krita, which about a third or more of the show I'm working on was actually done with Krita. So today is a weird day though, in that I'm you know, as I say, doing these vector things. So let's zoom out, and I think the whole sequence is starting to happen. So we've got this first bit, and then Mel has his sort of quizzical reaction, and then he shows his quintessential Mel thing that he does. It's one of the things that character's kind of known for, which again, we're trying to work some of those anime idioms into this. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to establish in the first 2 minutes of the show a lot of the things that are going to be sort of stylistically really what the show is about, you know, and when you know, I'm sort of establishing what we're going to be seeing. So that's the idea there. Now, why did that just change color? Ah, I see. We actually have 2 levels baked in here. I forgot about that. So I'm going to hit the R key and sample that color, and now we've fixed it. Cool. All right. So the rest of the job today is going to be ink and paint. That's pretty much it. We've got this animation. I pencil tested it last night. We got it blocked in, and now it's time to just smack down the ink and paint, and then we'll have this entire sequence completed. So here's what the whole... Actually, let's render this. Control-Shift-R. You guys didn't see that happen. Same for comics. Life gets in the way with priorities. Just like with filmmaking, we share a lot of similar interests. That's why I come back, because we're very similar. Are you talking, Amar? Are you talking about you and me? Who are you? I don't even know who you're talking about, buddy. Ed is really good in full chain. Yep, full chain animation. Well, full chain. I'll tell you what, you guys. If you really want to see, I tell you something. Seriously, if you want to see a live interaction between me as I'm working on this real world project and a really good animator like Full Chain, who yesterday's live stream was great, yesterday was a good live stream. It was 2 hours where I wound up throwing away a week of work because as I was batting it around with full chain, I'm going, you know what? These two shots, it's just when I cut these 2 shots completely out of the sequence, it just feels better. It just feels more professional. And I think that's what I want to do. I want to do whatever is best for the show, And I love that. And full chain was so cool, just being able to smash ideas around. And he was the one who suggested, why don't we break up this back and forth with the medium close-ups? Why don't we break it up with a 2-shot, which is what I did here. And then that silhouette actually needs to be a little darker after all. And basically the pacing of it all feels about right now. It's not too long. And so once we put the backstory into the show, what we're going to have is a complete sequence that's about 5 minutes long. And then I'm going to release that on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and do the musical score and put the voices in and everything and just release it on YouTube and kind of use that as a way to generate some traction, hopefully, for the show. I mean, that's kind of my goal. That's what I'm thinking. And then at that point, I may go ahead and do the crowdfund thing. I haven't decided yet. I'm either going to do it then or I'm going to do it after the first episode is completely done and on the street. Not sure. So there's no big rush. It's not like a panic to do it tomorrow anyway, so, who cares? Any advice on where to start? Well, start what? You mean on learning animation? Is that what you mean? Advice on where to start learning animation? I could give you some advice about that if that's what you're asking. I'll assume that is, and I'll blab for a minute about that. Basically, and by the way, Amar's weighing in. Learn the 12 Principles is a good start. There's a YouTube series here on, there's a series here on YouTube where a guy, I can't remember who did it, but you can just search for it, the 12 Principles of Animation, where there's a guy who basically breaks down the 12 principles. So for me, I do have the 2 seminal books on the topic. So one would be Disney Animation, The Illusion of Life. And the other would be Richard Williams' Animator's Survival Kit. Okay, so those 2 books are going to, if you're really just trying to learn animation and what you're going to get from Disney is more like what you tend to get from me, which is about the entire balance of the real-world workflow of everything involved in making a cartoon. But there's a lot of good technical information in there, too, about the 12 principles and all that sort of stuff. With Richard Williams, you're going to do a deep dive on animation, keyframing, timing, walk cycles, all that kind of stuff. So between those 2 books, you've got all the educational material you really could want for learning animation. But again, on YouTube here, you can, when he talks about primitives too, what he means is you go into Blender and you pop a pyramid up on the screen, right? Okay, so I'll show you what Amar's talking about here real quick. So I'm going to go into Blender 2.79 because I've used it more than Blender 2.8 Plus. So all Amar's saying is you're going to go in and you're going to add a cube, let's say, okay? All right, so now I'm going to go into object mode and I'm going to hit the R key and then I'm going to rotate this cube around. And as you can see, it's really, really big. So I'm going to shrink this down, zoom in here, and when I rotate it, as you can see, I don't really have many lights in the scene. So what Amar is saying is, okay, you're going to turn on automatic keyframing and you're going to hit the G key to grab it, okay, and then you're going to go forward a few frames and you're going to hit the G key and move it over here, and now as you can see it animates. Okay, so now when we talk about the 12 principles, we're talking about things like this. Okay, one of the principles, for example, would be anticipation. So we say, well, okay, if we're going to move this thing like that, let's move it back a little bit before we move it forward. Okay, so I actually just made a mistake. So let me kill that keyframe right there. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, this is the starting position, so let's go forward a couple frames, or maybe even just one frame, since this is running at 8 frames a second, I think. And let's move it back a little bit. Okay, so now this would be anticipation. A pull back before it goes forward. And then when it comes here, you might do a recoil where you say, okay, now it's actually going to bounce back. Okay, so now when I hit Alt-A to play it, you sort of get this little bit of, this anticipation didn't really read. Okay, so let me go here to this keyframe. Yeah, that did not read. So it's not extreme enough. So things like this, these are just principles that have taken 100 years to establish in animation. And so if this is going to go up high like this, now you're going to get into maybe the principle of squash and stretch, which says at the top of this motion, okay, up here, let's say, I mean, you could get into the fact that it would probably rotate as well, but if I scale this on its Z axis like this, okay, and then maybe here, I'm doing this really, really crudely, by the way. But, so now I'm going to scale it on the Z, and it's actually scaling according to the world, not to its local space, even though it says local. That doesn't look to me like it's scaling correctly, so. I know why. It's because the stupid, let me hit the O key. Nope, that's not the problem. Okay, I'm not going to get tied up in the nuance of it, but it's things like this. It's the idea that, you know, I'm trying to demonstrate something. I'm doing a horrible, horrible job because I'm sitting here fighting the tools. So that actually comes back to your question. So your question, my God, this is actually so horrible. If I'd been prepared to answer this question, I could have answered it much, much better. Okay? This is horrid. Scale down. My question is, why is this scaling? Why is that scaling in a non-uniform way? That is bizarre. And I just haven't been dinking around in Blender for a while to be able to answer that question, so I'm not even going to try. But suffice to say that the 12 principles will, yeah, I mean, that was horrible. I have to do it again. This is going to drive me crazy. This is nuts. So I'm going to pull up Blender 2.81a and all of a sudden do a better job, because I'm not going to fight with the stupid 3D models. But 2.0, that's what he meant by primitives. Primitives are things like a cube, you know, basic shapes, okay, right? So here's a basic shape that's a ball, like Maria's talking about, okay? And let me see something here. Okay, yes, okay. So here what we just saw happen is the ball decided it's got a life of its own, okay? And now the ball is going to go up like this. And the ball is seemingly alive. Okay? So now we're talking about it finding its weight here and kind of recoiling like that. And then, of course, in the real world, this really would not happen. But since we're animators, we're going to say, actually, the ball is going to stretch down to its landing point, which, of course, makes absolutely no sense. All right? But then when it lands here, it's gonna flatten out, right? Flatten, and then maybe it's gonna bounce again. And so then when we play it, which we can just toggle through, you see all this kind of stuff. So this anticipation right there, that anticipation, the squashing and stretching, the recoil, tweening, which means we go in between these two frames, right? And we actually create a frame that goes between them in order to smooth out the animation, you know, tweening, things like that. So all of these things are what we're talking about, you know, learning those basic principles, okay? Sorry about the getting on the side road there with fighting Blender's animation primitives, because that was a pretty ugly thing. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the B key. And before I go too much further, I want to get the characterization for Mel blocked in properly. Otherwise, I'm going to be regretting it. So I'm hitting the M key to flip my canvas, by the way, for those who are uninitiated. Okay. Dude, you're a 17-year-old kid, all right? Taking 2 minutes to show you something that might help you is not wasting time. Any idiot who thinks that's a waste of time is, well, an idiot, all right? waste your time for me, he says. Oh my, these children nowadays. These children nowadays. Absolute insanity. Alright. So now we do have lip sync here, so really basically, I'm gonna say, let's add a duplicate right here and punctuate the animation with a blink. So and actually I would say that since he's going right into the shrug, and I'm not trying to get one of those like blink moments of huh, that's not what I'm going for. It's just a blink to anticipate the movement. So I'm going to go ahead and not have it come back to the static shot. So in other words, it's going to go straight from the blink to the shrug, right? So boom, there you go. So the blink just gives it a little bit of life. No big deal. Don't waste your time for me. Oh my. No, I'm always happy to help young people that are sort of trying to figure out what they're doing. It's important. It's important, my friends. Very important. This, I've talked about that plenty here. When you're talking about, so 2O's talking about learning animation. Well, there's several questions that are wanting to be answered here. Okay? So there's technical questions, craft questions, and emotional questions. Technical questions are things like, what tool do I use? You're going to have to do a deep dive on more than one tool probably in order to have the tools in your toolkit to do what you have in your head, right? You got ideas and stuff in your head. That's what I mean by the technical. The craft question would be what Amar suggested. It's learning the principles of animation so you know the language, just like you know Python, right? Well, you sort of need to know the language of animation just so you, partly so you can, talk intelligently to others about what you're trying to do. But also just so you just bone up on the craft, a little bit. And then the emotional question would be, which a lot of young people are going to deal with a bit, is the question of sort of, is this possible? Because people that are creative, they're artistic, they're sensitive souls, And so the question is, it's about permission. Do I have permission? Can I do this? Is it possible? Will I be able to either find a job or will I be able to do what I love to do, or whatever? And the answer is almost emphatically yes. But you don't get to do what you want to do unless you also kind of know the craft and definitely know your tools to the point where you can. But there isn't getting back to your thing about Adobe Animate, versus Moho versus Clip Studio Paint versus Blender versus Opentoonz. At the end of the day, the craft part has nothing to do with the tools at all. So I've seen people do really good work, like Ed Tadeo does really good work with Krita. Amar does really good work with Blender. My PC is pretty hot, but it's also pretty old. So this PC is probably at least 8 years old, but it's a 12 core with 32 gigs of memory. So when I had it built, it was, it was really, really hot specs for the time. And it still performs very, very well, but one could argue that it's slightly more underpowered today than one might have said. In other words, the 8-core machine that's sitting over there next to it on the other machine, the desk, is basically faster, but not by much, than the 12-core machine. And the only reason we know that is we were actually mining crypto with it, with the two machines for a bit, because a friend of mine had launched a cryptocurrency. This was a couple years ago, and when we A/B'd the 8-core machine, which was using 8th gen Intel chips, against my, I think, 7th gen Intel chips, might even be 6th. With 12 cores, the 8-core machine was able to mine more crypto. So, yeah, that's how you figure out what you got, I guess. one way. Okay, so we've got the onion skin, so in this case we can just kind of use this as a guide. Get this shrug in here. These wrinkles are all kind of piling up. This would probably go, you'd basically see a little bit of a I don't know what the word is, sort of a flexing of this cloth. The bottom wouldn't tend to rise up much, maybe a tiny bit. Okay, so we got this. This is pretty much going to stay put. This is going to get compressed a little bit, like that. Yeah, we've got a wrinkle here, so we'll just say this is going to, again, maybe just compress a little bit. And when we turn the skins off, we're probably going to see it move pretty convincingly. Okay, except we didn't do the last frame. So, you know what I wish? I actually wish the eraser would let me just lighten the lines without necessarily erasing the lines. You know what? I can think of a way to do that. You know what we'll do? We'll take this color here, which we're not actually using in the scene, make it very transparent. Okay? Then we'll go here. Watch this. I'm going to do a fill operation, but I'm going to fill the lines. And I'm going to fill the lines with this color. And then with, okay, why is that in lines mode? Okay, sorry, freehand. So what that's going to do is it's going to turn all those lines from this color to this color, and this color's got transparency turned down. That way I can make this frame lighter without necessarily making all of them lighter. Oh, that's very, very clever. Very clever indeed. Okay. So now, boo-doop boop ba-doop doop. Boo-doop boop ba-doop boop. Okay, so let's just get the stuff that is actually going to animate here that kind of sort of matters. This crunch, crunch, crunch. So here, I would say that will actually come up a bit. This is going to compress. I'm going to reject that and do that one again. Yep. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So smoothly, just real time, bouncing between my frames and just figuring out where those contours go. Contour, contour, contour. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Okay, here's same thing. We got a contour here, contour, boom, boom. Whoops. There we go. So I like doing it this way. I don't use onion skins a lot. I like flipping and just so I see it happening literally in real time. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he basically moves back in reverse. So okay. So now that we've got that happening, that will serve as a quite nice guide for the inking process. Okay, so we got this line, this line. Okay, what about this? We got this. Oh yeah, I really like tweening this way. I must say, it's fun, it's fast, it's fluid, and it gets a good result from what I've seen. Okay, right there where it's falling apart a little bit. Yeah, that's gonna scrunch in there. So boom, boom, boom. There's basically a wrinkle that's going to emerge right there, I'm thinking. Okay, so now we got to get this. We got 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Oh, and it's flattening out, but it's thinning out as well. So this is going to be Okay, let's go back just a skirsh and see how it feels, people. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that sweet? Easy peasy. Nothing hard about it. Okay, can you explain it to me? Really do love infographics animations to teach my team. Infographics animations? I don't know what you mean by infographics unless you're talking about sort of like motion graphics as it pertains to things like explainer videos and stuff like that. Is that what you mean? Like in other words, I'll give you a couple examples of what I think you're talking about. If we go to my channel and we search for Fairway. So we search for Fairway. Okay, so this was all about processes involved in creating motion graphics for an explainer video. And why it doesn't want to play back, I'm not really sure. So, but I mean the actual video is at fairwaymediator.com. If we look at Hendrix, here is a 1.5 minute explainer video, which is, I would call this infographics. So this was done for a client. Yeah. Yeah, and this was done with Blender, Krita, and Opentoonz. It was a combination of all the above. I deliberately made the animation very, very simple. I was trying to sort of adhere to the standards and principles of explainer videos. You know, really, really simple. All that tweening, the bounce that it has in the animation, was either done with Blender. I'm going to turn the audio down, by the way. Turn the audio off. Oh, wait, I see. It's not on. I'm sorry. Yeah. Correct. You can't see links. So, but again, if you search the word Hendrix on my YouTube channel, you're going to find these. And by the way, you talked about programming. This was about half of the animation here was actually done by animating it with code in the browser using GreenSock JavaScript. And then I simply did a screen grab of the website just playing back the video. You know, so the animation was actually done with JavaScript. So, anyway, that takes care of that. So all these tools that we use to get the job done, baby. Whatever it takes, we don't care. And believe me, you know, we see all these ads on Facebook for little tools, or of course there's Fiverr guys and things like that. You know, all these things about to make it easier and faster to make explainer videos. Let me tell you something. Do you really think the client gave a rip what software I used to create that? No. And you say, well, what's the market value of an explainer video like that? You tell me. Can you see the link? Why is the topic of links, why is that come up in the chat? Who's trying to post a link? I have no idea why you guys are talking about whether link. I mean, I know that links cannot be posted into the chat. That is true. But my question is, why does that matter right now? What am I missing here? I'm missing something, I think. So a lot of times what I'll do with this tweening method is actually scribble. So you're just kind of scribbling like that. It really works pretty shockingly well. Okay, so we have a little contour here, right? Boom, 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 bam, bam, bam. And you just kind of go in and tighten it up. All right, things are feeling good. Searching YouTube, Watch Dogs 2, CTS introduction. See, Watch Dogs 2. Tuo is trying to post a link to an infographic. We're letting him know that chat doesn't. Oh, I see. Okay, this is what I'm trying to imitate. Well, okay, and I suspect that what I showed you is kind of in the zone, but yeah, I mean, normally what you're calling infographics, normally I would refer to as an explainer video. That's because that's the product that people are typically buying, is the explainer video. Okay, so now here, his head turns. Should we actually have a change in his body? I think minimally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's just grab the body with the S key. Got to zoom out a little bit here so I can get my lasso around it all. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Control C, and then I'm going to hit the S key and go Control V. But then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little shift. I'm hitting the Control key. Little weight shift, little shift. Like that. You don't want him to grow in volume or anything, okay? So, got to be a little careful. But yeah, just a little change right there, that's fine. I would actually say it would have more life to it if we actually did a little bit more of a mod of this as well. So I'm just going to randomly just do something. I don't care. As long as it, yeah, as long as it just feels like it's got a little pop to it, we're good. Okay. Now this is fun. You know, again, this is kind of that anime thing where it's going to be punctuated with a sound effect. So, let's get Asher drawn here.
Let's draw Asher. By the way, if you're wondering what kind of voice Asher will have, I can guarantee you of this. That this is precisely the voice that Asher will have, because I will be the voice of Asher. And so, as long as I have the opportunity here to demonstrate my outstanding voice acting capabilities, well, I might as well do so, because it's my YouTube channel and I can do what I want.
Okay, so nothing new in the chat. It's all good. It's all good, people. All good. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to make you into a professional yet, two erectors. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so this is cool. What we basically need to do here, look at this in the other screen. I want to get his costuming correct. Okay, pretty straightforward, really. He doesn't have much of a neck, frankly. If the truth be known, poor Asher has no neck. Actually, he does, but we don't really see it in this sequence. So what I'm doing is just kind of following these contour lines, these flow lines, as I like to call them recently, as I've been talking about this somewhat here on the channel. These lines of continuity, like if we follow his chin up here, it actually loops around the ear. Things like that can really help you to visualize. They don't become a rule. They don't become a rule about the structure of what you're drawing. What they do is they help guide your eye so that you can see it in your head, what you're trying to draw, before you've actually drawn it. To the extent that we're able to do that. In fact, I'll show you something I was playing around with actually on my laptop this morning. It was almost easier with a regular tablet without a screen. Because on the old Wacom tablet, you didn't have the stylus actually getting in the way of what you can see. But what I was doing is I was saying, well, look, let's say I'm drawing this character. Let's draw like a comic book character, right? Okay, so we'll kind of do this in the old John Buscema style, right? So we're gonna kind of go like this and make his eyes a little bit smaller than. We're gonna make this. We're gonna make Conan. Let's draw Conan. Okay, so we're gonna draw Conan. All right, here's a drawing of Conan. His nose is a little wrong. Buscema wouldn't do it quite that way. Buscema would be, yeah, there we go. And then Buscema's always going to draw the mouth like this. Now, I made his chin too small, obviously, but basically that's what Buscema would do mostly. That's pretty close. Buscema had a tendency to draw all the faces the same, right? So, okay, this is Conan, so... So my point was this. So you say, well, I don't know where to draw his ear or whatever. Well, what you do is you just take your stylus and you just wiggle it. You go back and forth like this. So you can see the line where it would be. Now this is something you can test yourself to see if you're sensitive enough to where you do see it in your mind. But if you do, then you wiggle your marker, your stylus or whatever, until say, okay, that's where it is. Right? Boom. And you see it before you place it, and you can go back and forth like this, right? So I'm kind of going in both directions, right? And I'm going, well, when do I see it? When does it look right? Oh, that's the one that looks right. Okay, there we go. Right? So that's not a horrible way to improve your drawing a bit, because really what we are in fact trying to do when we draw is, as much as possible in real time, what we're wanting to do is have a clear picture in our head of what we want to do, see it on the paper or the screen or whatever, and then execute. We place a mark, and either we succeeded or we failed right then and right there. And then what you want to do also is get good at catching the failures very quickly. You put the mark down, you go, oh, that wasn't it. That was wrong. Stop. Erase it. Do it over. You didn't see it clearly in your mind. Right? So, Conan, I'm going to say his... You know what? I'm actually going to divert in this direction just for half a second, because you know what? By gum, it's just so fun. So my Conan's a little different than Buscema's, because I think Buscema, for one thing, would have had the eyes down a little bit lower. Yep. So when I'm looking at these continuities across his skull, right? So then you say, well, wait a minute, what about Conan's beautiful, spectacular bodybuilder body? Well, okay, let's see what we can do with that. Watch this, people. Watch this. Conan the Barbarian, man. Conan ruled the roost, didn't he? For all those years that Buscema was drawing him. This is really where I come from, you know, as a cartoonist. You know, I really studied Buscema and Frazetta and stuff back in, you know, the high school days, and this was really what I thought I wanted to do. You know, I kind of botched the bicep there a little bit. Tricep action and zoom. So why am I diverting in this direction right now? You know what? No particular reason. It's fun. And it's my YouTube channel. I'm allowed to do what I want. And of course, Conan always has a sword. So there, Conan made his way into the cartoon. And anyway, Scholar's Hunt Syndrome, huh? Okay, take a quick glimpse of it. I think Dave may be right that Blender would be a nice thing for you to learn, the 3D components specifically. Well, anything, you talk about infographics, and especially this won't make a lot of sense to you probably. I don't know how good Photoshop and Illustrator are at giving you a workflow that's what I would call procedural, where the decisions you make in terms of what you draw and what you create are, if it's not procedural, that would mean that it's really baked into, you know, the frame that you drew it, it's baked in. And if you wanted to make a modification of it later, you wouldn't modify this and it would change instances of it later and things like that. You know, if everything's baked in, then you have to go in and go back and cut and paste and, you know. One thing Blender will do for you is give you a pretty darn procedural workflow, which usually does happen with things like infographics. You know, the client sees it, the client's got some ideas, some things they want to change. As much as possible, you really want to be able to go back and change something and have all instances of it later in the timeline update automatically, right? And you want to have changes under the hood, you know, propagate across your project as well. We use it here in Opentoonz, in that if I have a drawing of Asher that I think is just spectacular, I can take this level and I can go find it on my hard drive and drag it into another scene. And more importantly, what if I found out, what if I said, well, you know what, that drawing of Asher, it's really good, but it's not quite perfect. And so then I go in and I change the drawing of this, well, that's not Asher, but so I go in and I change the drawing on this cell. I guess it would have to be this one probably. And if I change it and resave it, then actually the scene that used this image, you know, that I worked on 2 weeks ago, it gets updated as well. All I have to do is re-render it. Just load it up and re-render. You know, things like that. That procedural workflow is pretty important when you get into larger projects. It's like kind of very important, actually. And that's something Blender is very, very good about, is giving you a procedural workflow. So, again, that's probably something that you're going, huh? You maybe. I don't know. I don't know how deep you've dove so far with, you know, Photoshop and Illustrator to kind of know what their capabilities are. And I don't know. You have those programs, but I don't know if you just kick the tires or if you consider yourself an expert. You used the word earlier. You said your team. You talked about your team, so I assume that means that you've got some experience with it. You know, you've worked with other people, blah, blah, blah. Maybe in a group setting. I don't know. It's all speculation after all, isn't it? At the end of the day. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this to here, which is all Asher, and I'm just going to slide it over here to another level. And the reason I did that is I drew Asher a little too big in the frame, and I don't want to. This is actually procedural workflow. This is what I'm talking about. This is actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Here I have a case where I drew the character too big. I want to shrink him. Well, I could grab him like this. I could grab him with the selector and make it smaller. The problem is I've got all these other drawings that I drew based on that same character. So now I'd have to go into every single one of them and fix it. Is there a better way? Well, yeah, there is. Just move it into another column and hit the animate tool and scale it. Okay, now I've just fixed all of the drawings in one step. That's what I mean by a procedural workflow. That's extremely useful. Having to go through and, you know, modify 75 drawings is a little harder than having to just change a single parameter that affects the whole column. So that's what I'm perfect example of what I mean by a procedural workflow. Procedural is better. It's the weakness. I don't know if Ed Tadeo's still around, but the great weakness of Krita, which is what he uses, is an amazing paint program with very respectable frame-by-frame animation capabilities. But if you want to talk about a procedural workflow, it's not worthless, but it's way towards the bottom of the pile in terms of programs. For anything that involves a procedural workflow. It's pretty awful, actually. You basically wind up having to just redo things when you've made a mistake. You know, when you've made a mistake and the mistake propagates downstream, which is what happened with Asher. You know, you've got one drawing that's the wrong size, and now all of them are the wrong size because I didn't realize it until it was too late. What do you do? What do you do? It's brutal. Okay, we got to have this. Okay, we already got that right. So Asher. And now I'm actually going to delete Conan. See ya, Conan. No, don't delete me. Conan's dead. Okay. So we got the anime thing. That's just a repeat of those cells. Okay, I think we're back to ink and paint now. Actually. Okay, can we use this? This is the level I put Mel on before. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to show you guys something. I'd mentioned this the other day. When you create a smart raster level in Opentoonz or Tahoma, okay, this one column with this sequence of drawings over here, this gets saved on your hard drive as a separate file. It's a TLV file, okay? I say, well, wait a second. I kind of want to keep all my work together. Okay, I don't really want to, like if I load up the TLV file, I want access to the pencil test and the ink and paint, everything all in one. That would be cool. Well, here's a simple way to do it. Here's what you do. Go down here and hit the B key and create a new cell. Okay? Now simply take this cell and smack it up to the top. Well, I'm doing this kind of the hard way. I probably should just cut and paste it so I'm not having to drag forever. But, so now I drag this up to the top here. Well, I'm sorry, that's the wrong spot. It's supposed to be here. And now I'm going to do the ink and paint on a separate column, but it's actually baked into the same level. I'm actually just adding cells to this image strip over here.
Pretty clever, hmm? Pretty clever.
And if I turn down the opacity of my pencil test, it's not going to affect the opacity of my ink and paint, as you will see here in just a hot second. Wrong column there, Jack. See? Look at that. Isn't that slick? Slicker than rhino snot, as my friend Andy Potter used to say. Got a couple lines wrong there. And now if I hit Control S and I save all, so I save my entire project, what we will discover is that our ink and paint is actually just tagged on to the end of our pencil test level. Isn't that slick? Probably not going to revolutionize your life, but it is kind of handy. Alright, I'm going to hit the M key so I can just make sure we're not getting out of balance here. Okay, I would say this ear is probably a little bit large-ish. Squish that up against his head a little better. Yeah, there we go. And then, if we're really going to be picky, let's maybe do a slightly better job on that. Okay, hey Dominic. Hey Dominic. Alright, I'm going to turn the smoothing on now. And I'm watching very closely. This is the hardest thing to do, is a really slow move that's supposed to be a perfectly smooth curve. This is where Amar's, or yeah, probably Amar would say, dude, why don't you just use the Bezier curve tool or whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, I mean, you're right. I could do that. I could do that. Boom, boom. Alright, let's get these little Alex Toth type lines in here. Little Alex Toth lines. Alex Toth being obviously a legendary comic book artist who, frankly, I mean, guys like me who really liked, you know, Frazetta and Buscema actually were not particularly fans of Alex Toth. But once you get into animation, you start to appreciate his contributions.
To the field.
Don't you know? Don't you know? The idea that you have to impart some simplicity into this. You've got to say, what is the single, pretty much uniform thickness line that I can put in here that really tells the whole story? Oh, that was wrong. Sorry. The scribblings on the pencil test kind of led me in the wrong direction there just a bit. Yeah. Okay. What are we doing? N key. That's feeling pretty good, people. It's feeling pretty good. What time is it? 2:17. Holy cow, I've been going for almost 2.5 hours today. What time is it? It's actually 11:05. Okay. Melchizedek has a little bit of hair peeking out behind his ear. Like so. Okay, hitting the M key again. I said M key. Just double checking. This is probably off a little bit actually, so it's fortunately we can just grab the S key and smack that into place. We aren't going to let that bother us a bit. No, no, no. We are not. Poppity pop pop. Okay, well, for this particular shot, Mel's eyebrows would appear to be, well, you can see.
You can see what they are.
M key, not bad there, Dave. Not bad. Little bit of a quizzical look. Little bit quizzical. I would say maybe this is just a little off. Okay, and then here it's just a blink. So if we, well, let's see if we got all the ink in that's supposed to be in there. Do we put his mouth in? I don't think so. Yeah, because he's talking through this whole sequence, so no mouth. B key. Is anything missing? Okay, so now I'm going to go back and just double check my characterization on Mel. Yeah, a little problem. Little problem. Little bitty problem. It's been an ongoing thing in that Mel's jawline. It's a little tiny bit more of a horseshoe than what I drew here. And that doesn't work. So this is one of those cases where the digital, forget it, just delete the stupid thing. And by the way, I'm not going to try to do this without actually, drawing it first. So let's go back to this. He's a little closer to Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender. He's a little bit wider in the chin than I drew him right there. So now this is a little confusing to look at, but if we actually hollow that out, that's probably a little better, yes. Okay. So again, most difficult possible thing to do. Let's actually use the multi-arc tool. It's set at 2 pixels. Oh, we may regret this. Let me just see. We're probably going to be okay. So I'm going to go boom, 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 and boom. Okay, I think we're okay. I think, therefore I am. Whoopie-doopie-doo. Alright, got a little bit of thickness here that I just want to trim away at it just a little bit. So we're kind of back into modeling mode here where I'm really spending more time on one stupid line than you really should have to. But, you know, the problem is, it's a kind of important line. Kind of an important line, my friends. Okay. So if everything's good, then I can make a duplicate. Zoom in here. Erase. Hit the B key. Got to be on the right brush, by the way. And just go ahead and get this blink in. N key. And then this is going to be back to... Oh, no, it's not. This is a different drawing. Okay, so the shrug began. Okay, I didn't realize that. All right, so now we got an important question to ask. Do we want to let's cut and paste the head into it. I don't think the head really ever changes through the shrug. So why? I actually selected from the wrong column. I am a silly goose. Boom. Control C. Okay, here what we need to do, we need to get our drawings in there. So let's hit the B key. B. That's 11. This is a repeat of 10. Okay, those are repeats. So now what we'll do is we can go S key, V, S key, Control V, I should say. Nope, I don't like that. And this is then going to be this, Control C, Control V. Hey, baby. Is it cold outside? Well, since my beautiful woman just passed by, I'm thinking it's time to take a break. Yep, I'm taking a break. I will take a break. I need to refill this for sure. And I'll be back in a few minutes. So that means rewind. This is going to loop. I'll be back in a bit. If you're bored and don't want to wait for me, I won't be offended. Just do what you're going to do. This is the Animation Truman Show. I just do what I do. People can watch if they want to. Well, as we can see, almost everybody left, so that's okay. We're just doing what we do. Work, 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 work. Okay. Okay, so now what we gotta do... Okay, it looks like I actually started the shrug on the blink, but I am gonna ignore that. I am not going to bake that move into the blink. Nope. I think probably I want to turn my smoothing off. Yeah, so I've effectively kind of reduced my shrug from 4 frames to 3. I just don't really think that matters. And if it turns out it does, well, I'll just modify the blink frame. And I suspect, could be wrong, but I suspect the world will keep on turning. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Little wrinkles sneak in there. That's fine. Boom. Boom. Yeah, I didn't like that. I want to get a little bit of a wrap right there. There. Boom, boom, boom. And again, we got our wrinkles just starting to sneak in there. I want those to come up a little bit. Boom. 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 We'll turn some smoothing back on to get this nice curvature. Shrug. Yep. Little bit off on my anatomy right there, so I'll just make the adjustment. Now, close these shapes so they fill. Yeah, okay. Neck time. As you can see, we've got some garbage here that we're going to want to probably clean up. Yeah, right there. So we'll just go through and deal with that right this instant. Make sure those shapes are closed or I might get in a pickle at fill time. Now, a lot of these things are things you're not going to see. You know, they're going to go by pretty fast. Okay, this I don't like either. Up, up, up. This is a little bit wrong. So Rather than try to fix it, I'm just going to redraw it. Yep, I do this a lot. Let me just connect the dots. I don't like that little whipping around. I want more of a smooth transition from a definite convex shape to flattening out, you might say. And again, the eraser. Erase, erase, erase. N key. All right. What do we have? You're still here. Nice. Well, apparently there's two people here. Okay, one thing we also have to do, by the way, is just hit our B key and oops, that was a boo-boo. Close this shape, and in my case I like to hit Control-Shift-F. Use the fill check tool and just see what's not closed. So here we'll just kind of draw a line across there. That will serve the purpose. Nice. Oh, I think I'm going to sneeze. Bless me. Bless me. Okay. So that brings us to here, which I'm going to do as a duplicate. And hit the S key. We had a little bit of a turn of his head. It kind of pops up a bit. Just kind of dial it in there. So I'm going to make the drawing's just a little bit off, so no big deal. Fix, fix, fix. Whoops, that's no good. So as you can see, there's definitely some garbage here to clean up. Control-Shift-F. Let's get rid of these little nasties. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and just make that a little lower, and this could be then, of course, tweaked to our heart's content. This is an expression that Mel is kind of known for. Always of good cheer. And then I believe this is going to be Asher. Yep. So this would be an interesting case where before we switch to this, it would be interesting to do this. Add another drawing. Actually, let's do it this way. Since we're here and we've got it right here ready to go, let's go Control-C. And then let's add another drawing here. B key. And hit Control-V. Hello? Okay, I guess that didn't work. So I'm going to go like this. Control-C. Next frame, S key, Control-V. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little trick that you've probably seen somewhere. Okay. What are you doing? I'm going to take these two, Control-C, Control-V, and then we'll switch it to this sort of quintessential anime idiom, as I like to call it. I said fill. Oh, we don't want freehand. Oh, come on. Okay, sorry. My bad. Areas. Okay, so what did I just do? Well, I added this little effect, and we'll see how it plays. Probably gonna lose that. It's too much of a good thing. It's like a choice I need to make. Either have him go the ding ding reaction route, or go to this. And I would say, yeah, no contest. That drawing was probably not necessary. So I'm gonna go fill in empty cells. That's fine. We'll do it that way. We'll stick with the plan. Stick with the plan from the pencil test. That's what we'll do. Okay. B key. 239. So I think what I'm going to probably do is get the inking done. I probably won't do the fill operations, I expect. And probably call it quits after the inking is done, and then take a break. I'll probably wrap up the live stream, take a break, and then I got to work on the clerical errors, distributor assets. So much time, so little to do. Oh, strike that. Reverse it. Anybody know that movie reference? What's that line from? Who said, strike that, reverse it? I bet you Maria knows. I'll bet you Maria knows exactly who said that. Strike that, reverse it. Boop 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 boo. Boop 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 boo. Hey, cool. That worked. Whoop, that didn't work. Too pointy. That's not big enough. Split the difference, as they say. Split the difference. And now let's clean that up a bit. That'll work. Boom, boom, boom. And then he's got that hunched thing going on, as I think Amar pointed out. I think it was Amar. Boo-doo, boop, ba-doop, doop. Actually, if I hit the N key to get back to normal size, it'd probably make my life a little easier. And then we just draw a line across here. So all these shapes will fill nicely. Yep, we're in good shape. And then, of course, S key, we can take everything from here down and smack that into here. Well, actually, strike that. There's even more we could copy. So I'm going to actually copy everything. This may backfire to some degree. And I'm going to hit shift so I can actually grab that as well. Did that work? I don't know. Let's find out. Yeah, that worked. Okay, cool. Cool beans. Cool beans. Cool beans. And then we got to modify this, because as I say, we're going for that anime thing. And then we'll put the little blinkety blink effect in a different level. So that means this will extend to here. And I repeated the, okay, so that's 9, 10, 11, 10, 9. So yeah, literally I copied it twice. So I think I'll just try doing it this away. So I'm allowing the blink to come back in there. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Yep. Well, it wouldn't be Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. It'd be Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. It would be Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. I don't know if Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka said that line. Maybe he did, but I don't know if he did. I don't have a clue. Don't know, don't care, because I think that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was a pretty crappy movie. Now, I will admit, it was closer to Roald Dahl's book in terms of the dark aspect of it. It really was. I read the book when I was in elementary school. But, nope, not quite. Sorry, Beaky. Just want a little bit of an indication there, so put that. Control C, S key, Control V, yeah. I'm gonna leave the other one as is. Okay, so basically we've got a bunch of lip sync we gotta do here. Now, could we do it here? There's really no reason why we couldn't. It would probably be wise to add a new color in the vector level. So I'm basically stealing the vector level to do Mel's lip sync. So we're going to do this, as I have stated, anime style. And I'm going to turn on the skins just for this. Okay, so we're going to go here, Control C, Control V, and then this is going to be the almost closed mouth shape. And then this whole sequence would repeat. And that gives us basically universally effective lip sync. What he says is, I was just wondering if we had any more honey. Something to the effect of, I was just wondering if we were out of honey cakes. And I changed it from popcorn to honey cakes because my good friend Centenary, who doesn't usually show up on the live stream but does put a lot of good comments on the videos, he objected to the idea that popcorn really wasn't available at this time. You know, in the real world, so to say. And I'm like, dude, really? I really don't care. But if you have a better idea, you let me know and I'll just use your idea maybe. And he said, honey cakes. I'm like, okay, honey cakes. Fine. What do I care? There'll be honey cakes instead of popcorn. What do I care? The idea is that Mel is not wondering about his own origins. He's simply wondering if there's some good snacks. This is the fill in empty cells function, which basically flies that down, fills up those empty cells, obviously. And yeah, so now we've got blah, 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 blah. I was just wondering if we had any more honey cakes. And Asher realizes, oh my gosh, I've let the cat out of the bag. Okay, well, guess what? If we're going to leverage our vector level, let's leverage our vector level. Let's do it. So here, actually right here, what I'm going to do is, well, no, it's not even here. It's here. I'm going to take the geometry tool, and this will make it way better because we're going to do rectangles. So I'm going to do a rectangle like so. Okay, S key, Control C, Control V. Oh, come on now. I don't want to resize this silly thing. I want to grab it. Grab, grab, grab. There we go. I'm going to pull this over to here. Control C, Control V. I'm going to pull this down here. Angle it. Okay, that was a mistake. It looks like, okay, that's interesting. So it looks like with vectors, the translation tools want to default to normalizing the actual orientation of the object you grabbed. So what does that mean? That means what I needed to do here is hit undo. I need to shrink it this way, then do the rotation and move it into place. Which actually, strike that again, even another example of, this is one of those procedural workflow things. I actually need to Control-C, Control-V and make yet another copy. Oh, come on. It's very persnickety about how you grab them. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm rotating it, and I'm thinking that, okay, well, basically it's going to be 20 degrees. So if this is going to be 20 degrees, I do kind of want to make this one, I think we can do negative 20, yeah. So if we do negative 20 here, and 20 here, then we'll go Control-C, Control-V, pull this up to here, same thing here, Control-C, Control-V, pull this down to here, and then, okay, so each of these are going to go 3 frames. So this is then going to be duplicated, boom, like so. And then these guys, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This shrinks, this shrinks. I guess we have some latitude here. So here's where we have the problem. If I actually try to stretch this, look what happens. That's kind of stupid, but it is what it is. So we really don't have any choice. We have to take all of these, get rid of them, probably match this up a little better to the other one's size, and then Control-C, Control-V, smack this down here, just make it longer, just ballpark it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Control-C, Control-V, and now we move all these up into their position. This is a bit tedious. A bit tedious. Control-C, Control-V. Okay. And now what we will do is save our work, because there's something going on here with the selection that I'm not quite understanding, where these other objects have become inaccessible even though I don't have onion skins turned on. So I have no idea what's going on here. It's one of those situations where I think I pressed a key and something really, really, really terrible and destructive happened to my shot that made these little guys inaccessible. And I have absolutely no idea what just happened. A little bit annoying. Little bit annoying here, people. Well, this gets back to, you know, knowing your tools. Because something just happened that I really don't have a clue what there it goes. Now I've got everything accessible again. So there's something about grouping, I think, where if you select everything as a group in a vector level, it treats them as a group. Okay, that's okay. That'll work. So we'll take this and this, Control-C, Control-V. Not sure how long I did this. I guess I did it to here. So we'll go here to here and hit Control-V again. And most of our inking work is done. Yeah. I definitely didn't like the Burton movie. I thought it was boring. And okay, we don't want to violate broadcast standards, so we need to make sure this red isn't actually too saturated. And by the way, truth be known, probably should make them yellow. Why? Well, because our background is actually burgundy. It's like kind of a really dark red, so We definitely need to make this little effect a different color. Okay, so now we got to go back up here. And once again, steal this sequence. I'm actually going to grab this whole thing. Control C. Put it down here like that. And I think we'll cut some of these frames out. Yeah, actually, one more. But I have actually kind of wondered. Yeah, so he basically says, well, yeah, I have always kind of wondered about that. I was just wondering if we had any honey cakes. But I always have kind of wondered where I came from, or something like that. I can't remember what the line of dialogue is, but that's what it amounts to. Okay, file, save all. We're making good progress here, people. Well, we've got a lot of shots baked into a single project file here, so it does complicate things a bit. This is essentially our ink level, so what we probably should do is take this, turn its opacity way down so it can serve as a guide, and then in the ink we're not going to worry about resizing it. I rescaled the pencil test, but now I'll just ink according to the resized version and we'll be in good shape. Good shape, I say. B key. Let's make an ear. Let's make 2 ears. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of smack in the contours I know for sure I want. Crooked nose. Asher's got a very crooked nose. He has wrinkles up the wazoo. He's kind of an old man. Again, kind of doing that Alex Toth thing as it pertains to ink. Anyway. Hitting the M key. Little bit of an objection right here. Don't feel like I quite made that big enough. That's fine. Big, bumpy, angular, cheeky thingy. Little beard action. And now this is kind of a dramatic moment on Asher's part. Here we go. Boom. I got it. Can't believe I got it, but I got it. Man. Nice. N key. Is that going to fill properly? No. We have leaks. Well, let's turn that back on and I'll bet you a leak is there. Yep. I knew it. My finely tuned instincts served me well. Okay, so now I'm very much winging it here. Oh. I deliberately am doing this to kind of make my, in other words, the sort of the posing of the way I did his garment is to kind of make my life easier and avoid tangents as well in the art, meaning weird coincidences in terms of where the lines bump into each other. Okay, so here we go. Alright, I did do a blink, so we'll duplicate, erase. For Asher, the blinks are pretty simple. that should be coming back to the prior drawing. So we'll just go Control C, Control V. Now, what do we have here? There's a slow push on the camera does a slow push in on Asher. Therefore, there's really no good reason to we don't need to animate his head. Okay, what we do need to do is basically just go back to lip sync mode here. So I'm going to hit the B key. We're going back to the vector level. And now we put in Asher's lip sync. That is a little sloppy. I want this a little bit larger. Control C. And this is going to be the old almost closed mouth. So he says, "All right, Melchizedek." So we'll put 2 cycles of that in. And then it cuts to a outside shot of the building to sort of get us out of the scene. Okay? I'm going to render this, Control Shift R, and then just go back and look at what we have over in the timeline. Okay, definitely need to make that silhouette a little darker. Definitely need to take the pencil test out. Alright, Melchizedek. It's time you learn the truth. Okay. So we're in good shape here. Come back here. We're going to turn off this and this. And I said that this color was going to be darkened just a smidgen. And so I'm going to re-render and check it. If everything's looking good, I would say, I just hit 3 hours, so I would say I'm going to quit. Okay, the color changed, so oops. Big oops there. I might have to make a bit of a tweak. Melchizedek's color really should be this. Not erase, silly goose. R key. And by the way, I looked at where my finger is. Yet again, I did not hit erase. It's right next to the R key. I'm going to assume I did hit erase, but Tahoma is pretty notorious for missing hotkeys. Okay, now that change in tonality right there. Here's why. This color needs to be this color. Yep. Okay, we're back in business. Control Shift R. And I would say we're probably... Yep, we're getting there. We're just going to have to color this baby in. Alright, Melchizedek. Okay, and because I muted the pencil test, it's gone. But that doesn't matter because actually, right here, what's actually supposed to happen, move this out of the way, is that this shot, Control C, Control V, becomes the close of the scene.
It's time you finally learned the truth.
And then he starts telling Mel the story, the backstory of the show. Ta-da! So that means this sequence is basically done. This is the opening of the show. You know, Asher, I've been wondering. Something I've been wondering about. That's not exactly what his line is.
I knew this day would come.
Hmm?
Well, it's perfectly natural to want to know where your story.
Story?
To know how you came to live with me.
Well, I was actually just wondering if we had any honey cakes. But now that you mention it, I always have kind of wondered about that.
All right, Melchizedek. It's time you finally learned the truth.
And then he starts telling the story about the land of Newsy. Used to be a land of prosperity. Big coup d'etat thing that happened, yada, yada, yada. And that gets us into the show. So it looks like the timing's blocked in about right. So if we extend that to there, what do we have? 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's really perfect. So my suspicion is that we'll probably wind up taking this entire sequence with the scene I just did, lay in the voices, lay in the musical score, and release this. That's my plan. And then that will serve as a kicker for either the crowdfund or the imminent release of the entire episode. So, there it is. There it is, people. That's it. I think I'm done. Now, concurrent viewers. There's quite a few of you still out there. 6 anyway. Should we quit? Should we wrap up this adventure? I'm a little tossed. I think I should. I really want to get going on the getting the assets together for the movie that is going to be going into distribution. So with that, I think I'm going to sign off. Thanks for hanging out, guys. It's been groovy. It's been quite fruitful. We've learned some cool things. And as you guys know, as I always say, there will be more later.